All right, Chris, a pre-taped, raucous crowd. A pre-taped episode in front of a raucous crowd. And not that that has to be the headline on the show, but it is the most novel aspect of tonight's show. And what's interesting is sometimes international crowds get heat from TV viewers because they take over a show in a way that feels like, hey, look at us. I don't think the crowd did much of that at all. They were just into the product, which I think is a credit to the crowd in Barcelona. I think it's also credit to the WWE product right now. It's your thoughts on the atmosphere on this show tonight?
I think if they could pick that crowd, put them in a suitcase and take them everywhere, they would do it in a heartbeat. That crowd was hot all night.
Yep.
And you're right. It's not like a British crowd or a Canadian crowd where they tend to try their hardest.
I wasn't going to name names. You're the one who's naming names.
Yeah, listen, I get to, right, being British
you are.
in Canada.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know.
But I think they just went along with whatever WWE wanted them to do. You know, there's an exception in there. Axiom would not have expected to get a pop like that anywhere else on the planet. But yeah, like that crowd was molten, and it really gave what was otherwise a pretty maintenance level show a huge feel.
This was a show that you could sort of ask 10 people watching, name the top 5 things that happened, and there'd be 12 things that are mixed as the top 5, and the order wouldn't be the same on any of the lists. It's just kind of largely a maintenance show. I mean, we got the first Jade Cargill interview, which I actually kind of want to talk about first, I think, after the crowd here. We had World Tag Team title change, or WWE Tag Team titles change hands, so that's newsworthy. We'll get into that too. That was the main event. A Cody promo, Angle with Braun and Solo to set up a match. Some developments on the women's side of things, Randy Orton wrestling. So, I mean, you know, a good number of things happened, and some good vignettes too.
Yeah.
One note, this is just sort of logistical, but it's interesting in that it aired on USA Network here in the United States. For you, it aired on Netflix, and since it was pre-recorded, Netflix didn't air any or many commercials, and so you finished watching this show about an hour ago.
Yeah, I think there might have been just in-house ads. I don't remember anything other than TKO ads. Like I think there might have been a UFC or something. But yeah, this show ended just after 11:30 my time. So it's now just 12:40-ish. So the show was over. I checked your report to see where you were, and you were still doing Miz TV. And I'm like, okay, time to settle in for a bit. But
yeah.
I think that's something we're going to see more of as we go forward, is just the different finishing times as the different ad levels in different countries.
Yep, absolutely. So I know that I want to talk about this Jade interview. I mean, again, we could start with any number of things, to be honest. They're all just sort of on a 1 to 5 scale, level 2 or 3. No, nothing blockbuster. I mean, the Street Profits tag champs for the first time in over 4 years is newsworthy, but not like crazy. So, but the Jade Cargill sit-down interview is interesting. She got asked by Kat, and this was in the empty arena, recorded earlier in the day. And Kathy Kelly, I'm glad she asked this, because I like when announcers ask what's on the minds of the fans instead of seeming like they're trying to hide things or be propaganda artists or, whatever, PR agents. And she goes, "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" And I don't think she answered it. She said all she remembered was being attacked on the hood and then seeing Naomi run away. But she didn't really explain, like, I unless I missed something, like I would have liked her to say, well, the memories were lost for a while. It took a while to come back or something. I mean, I would have bought into that. And she didn't really answer that. I don't think it's a huge deal, but I'm wondering, did you take from that, Chris, a sense that there could still be a twist? Because she goes, well, I didn't remember anything, but I saw Naomi run away. Well, we saw Liv and Raquel run away too, and that didn't prove anything. Naomi admitted she did it, so that's not the mystery. The question is did something else happen and they're trying to leave that open? Or did we spend so many months speculating that when we see a straightforward interview from Jade, we're trying to project onto it? I bet there's another twist coming up with Bianca or something else. So what do you think overall of that interview?
It stood out to me because Jade felt the most comfortable she's ever felt on the microphone, including her time in AEW. Mm-hmm. She didn't feel like she was trying to put on a character. She did seem a little bit vulnerable, but also angry, as you would expect when you've been betrayed by somebody you trusted. Mm-hmm. And so that really did seem like it made sense to me. I thought Kathy was excellent with the questions she asked and the way she asked them. You've done a billion interviews, and you know when you're asking something sensitive, you have to put it in a way that doesn't make your subject feel like they've been ambushed. You need to make them want to answer the question instead of walk out. And she did that. I mean, yes, obviously it's pre-recorded and it's all scripted, but I think it's a good sign that Jade is getting a little bit more comfortable doing what she needs to do with a microphone in her hand. As for the twist, I've been thinking about this quite a bit because there's something similar going on in New Japan right now. I don't think there's necessarily a twist, because sometimes the twist is that there isn't one and everybody's waiting for it and looking for it. And the twist is, no, there isn't going to be one. It's the way that Bianca has reacted, the way that she reacted to Naomi, the interaction with the copious amounts of screaming from last week shows that she's not involved. I don't think, despite your discussion with Todd on the fix, I think you can pretty much rule out Bianca's involvement after that. It would be way too elaborate to have Bianca and Naomi go through that entire segment screaming at each other and then still say that she was involved somehow. Could there be somebody else? I guess. I don't know who it would be. There isn't an obvious choice unless you're going to bring someone up from NXT, and that's how you do it. You could bring like I guess you could bring a Jordan Grace in that way, a Julia, or maybe Zarya would fit that nicely.
Yeah, but, like some surprise co-conspirator or something that would add a little twist to things. But I don't know. Yeah. I mean, we just spent so long thinking there must be, and then the interview it felt, potentially evasive, but also potentially straightforward, just not worded as thoroughly as conspiracy theorists would like.
Yeah. I mean, there's some possibilities there. I think if you're going to put someone in there as an extra person, it needs to be somebody who's imposing and scary. I don't think bringing up Roxanne Perez that way, for example, makes sense.
Yeah.
I do see the possibility there. I just think it's just going to be Naomi, and Bianca's going to be caught between the two.
And so we also have Jade Cargill returning to the ring next week against Liv Morgan. Liv and Raquel happened to be walking in the arena as Jade was talking, so it was kind of a good way to end the interview without it dragging on or whatever, overstaying its welcome. And Liv's mouthing off going, if you would have spoken up sooner, then I would have been blamed all this time. And so it leads to a match next week, and I think it's a good match to feature. I think we want to see Jade in the ring. And I mean, Liv has been given a pretty solid push. And is Jade going to get the Axiom treatment? I mean, not like the spirited underdog babyface, but like an undersized underdog to Jade, which I assume is how she'll be portrayed. Does she show any fighters? Does Jade just beat her right away, or does Jade does Jade sell a lot for her? I'm intrigued with how they, how much they try to protect Liv. I mean, obviously Raquel can interfere, and that can lead to Liv getting advantages without hurting Jade, but that still puts Jade in a position of needing to do things she doesn't have a lot of experience doing. And so I'm curious about the storyline of the match, how they book it, how they kind of balance that out. I'm also curious how Jade looks. How much work has she done during her time off while she was recovering from some neck issues and selling the storyline? Chris?
I'd be surprised if we get a clean finish. If it's not Raquel, it'll be Naomi. I don't think you can put Jade over Liv in a convincing fashion, but I also don't think you can have Jade lose. So somebody's interfering in that match somehow.
Yeah.
And then it leads to something at WrestleMania. But no, I don't see a clean finish there.
Yeah.
And Liv, I liked the introduction. I liked the fact in a very Wade Keller straighten your tie moment that there was a reason for Liv and Raquel to be walking through at that point. They weren't interrupting the interview. They weren't happening to be there backstage. They had a valid reason to be coming through, and they just sort of started shouting. And they were shouting for a little bit before anybody acknowledged them. It was almost felt natural.
Yeah. Yep. Almost as natural as every pull-apart brawl does, except there's so many of them, they start to not feel natural. But that's a whole other topic, the Charlotte and Tiffany brawl. And anyway, we'll get to that too. Mike Steph, listening to our conversation, says Naomi introduces her back up next week to avoid a finish. Scott TPA in the chat says Jade versus Liv is going to be a Paulovic special, a cop-out non-finish. Kyle Fassel said, I think her stopping the interview and walking out felt right. It also put Liv even more over as being a menace that gets under people's skin. Mike Steph added earlier in the chat, Jade was hinting at being upset that Bianca moved on quickly. Did you think that, Chris? I get why Mike's saying that, but comment on that.
I understand where that's coming from. I took it as Jade was upset that Bianca was teaming with the person who attacked her, even though Jade couldn't have that Bianca couldn't have known it was Naomi who attacked her. So I felt more like Jade didn't blame Bianca, otherwise she would have attacked her too.
She used the phrase, Naomi teamed with Bella afterwards as if nothing happened, so she had to take things into her own hands. It would be very unfair to say Bianca is to blame if Jade believes Bianca didn't know, and certainly the segment last week indicated Bianca didn't know because she was asking Naomi and was crushed when it happened. I'm not committed to reading into that at all. I mean, it's they could turn that into something, but it would make Jade look sort of unreasonable, and I don't think they want to. Yeah.
I'm curious how long that match goes before they end it.
I know.
I don't know how much work Jade has been doing while she's been away. You know, there were numerous reports that she was injured. She wasn't injured. I don't have connections enough to know which of those is correct.
Well, my reporting is I was told she had a legit neck issue. Now, did that require her to take time off, or was it something where they said, hey, we got this storyline, we want you to train, and also you can get your neck work done? That's the part where I think you're hearing a little bit of both. I don't rule out from what I heard, because it's tough to get medical information, honestly, when it's HEPA. Is that it? HEPA? No, HEPA's a filter. What is a medical
doesn't exist in Canada.
Yeah, I know. I'm asking the wrong person. Someone in the chat will jump in. But you can't release information without the person. And sometimes you hear it and people just will tell you because it's not a secret. But in this case, it felt a little bit like they were not being totally forthcoming with what's going on. So HIPAA, HIPAA. Thank you, Scott. Not HEPA. HEPA's a filter. I'm glad I caught myself, but I still said it as I caught myself, so I don't know why I did that. So I think there was, I'm told for sure there was a neck issue with her, but I don't know that she had to take all that time off. But maybe she did. You know what I mean? And I don't know how much work she got. But then some of this just became, how do they want to time out this angle? And obviously they have, their timeline in mind that dictates, when some of these things happen. Anyway, Chris, let's pause there. Let's formally introduce the show and ourselves quickly, and then we'll get to callers and chat and mailbag, and talk more about everything else on the show, because there's a lot to talk about. Just like we said, it's sort of what order? There's not a real obvious order. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Friday, March 14th, 2025. I am Wade Keller, host of the show, the editor, publisher, and founder of the long-running Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter and the website, PWTorch.com, and the host of the Wade Keller Post Shows and the Wade Keller Podcast, which included earlier this week Jason Powell from ProWrestling.net joining me on the flagship. So if you are discovering us on YouTube or watching us on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast version of this, because sometimes it's easier to listen to a podcast than it is to watch on YouTube. So you might as well have both options available to you. When you search Wade Keller, you will see the red logo pop up. And when you see the red logo, you'll also see the blue logo pop up. That's the podcast version of our two main feeds. And that includes the weekly flagship, along with classic interviews, pay-per-view previews, and other good stuff, including 15 years ago flashbacks to our call-in shows, which are really fun to listen to right now, going back to 2010. And while you're at it, search PWTorch to subscribe to the PWTorch Daily Cast feed, a different show each day of the week with a different theme, a WWE-based show, NXT, AEW, Indies, the 90s Past Cast, Wrestling Night in America. I'm forgetting one, and I feel bad. I should have the list in front of me. I'm always on edge when I try to list all of them. But different show each day of the week, and I'm sure you'll find those hosts fantastic and make an appointment listening. So search PWTorch also to subscribe to that. But we're here tonight to talk SmackDown. We live stream on YouTube on the PWTorch channel. So search PWTorch on YouTube and subscribe to our channel and set up for alerts so you get reminded when we're going live. We go live on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday after Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown. And then the show becomes available on demand on YouTube and also on demand by audio in an audio format on our podcast feed, as I mentioned before. And if you can join us live, you're invited to join in the live chat. We throw those graphics on the screen, and we always read them to our audio audience also, because most people, because we've been doing podcasting for, as noted, over 15 years, we have a much bigger podcast audience in YouTube right now, and we want to not have you guys listening to us all this time, our loyal listeners, feel left out. So we always read those comments. But if you can join us live, it's really fun. Chat's a good environment. And there's a lot more going on there than I highlight on the show here. If you can't join us live, but you want to contribute to the show, Wade Keller podcast at gmail.com is the way to participate. So if you watch Raw, Dynamite, or SmackDown, you have questions or comments on the show, but you can't watch us live right afterwards on YouTube, send an email in with questions or comments. And we often work most or all of the emails into the show. So it's always great to hear from new people too. So don't feel like it's some exclusive club where only JB from Detroit, and I don't want to step on his toes. Everyone's invited, and we like contrary points of view. I'll push back hard if I think you're wrong, but also sometimes a new perspective gets me to completely recalibrate my thoughts and rethink them. Really encourage people to email in with your thoughts and questions and rants and your personal taste that we learn from that feedback. And then another way you can join us is by video call or audio call. The link to that is a VIP exclusive for our Patreon supporters on the PWTorch Patreon page, or through the PWTorch VIP website. If you have a full VIP membership, you get the ad-free version of our website with exclusive content. And my TV reports have a link to be a live caller. And if you're not a VIP member, I just mentioned that, go VIP. PWTorch.com/go VIP will give you all the details on all the ways to go VIP, exclusive content, commercial-free versions of these shows, VIP exclusive podcasts, 35 plus years of archives, other benefits, all laid out there, different price points for however you want to use our service. One other thing you can do is get a 7-day free trial on Patreon or Spotify. Just search PWTorch VIP while you're in Spotify or Patreon, PWTorch VIP, and then activate the 7-day free trial, and you can see what the VIP podcasts are all about. That feed does include our 18 years ago flashback episodes to some of the earliest Surviving Insider podcasts. In fact, marching through our VIP podcast library from 18 years ago, that day or that week. That includes post pay-per-view roundtables, Wade Keller hotlines with a ton of backstage insider news on that era, and Bruce Mitchell audio shows, The Real Deal with Pat McNeil, and more. So it's not just current events that you get as a VIP member. You also can jump back almost 2 decades and hear what we're saying back in 2007. The other voice and on YouTube face you see on the show is Chris Lansdell. People want to know where you're from. Chris, tell people about you, and welcome to the co-host chair.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Wade. Where am I from? That is a question in and of itself. I was born in England. I grew up in Barbados. I now live in Newfoundland, Canada. Bit of a world traveler. I primarily do New Japan for the Torch. It's the New Japan Cup season right now, so I am doing a ridiculous amount of watching Japanese wrestling. Very interesting stuff happening with Jeff Cobb as well, which we might get into later. I don't know. But I love all sorts of wrestling. I do a lot of the AEW post shows. I think this is my first WWE one that I've done.
No, you've in a while, but we've done WWE before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we did do a pay-per-view at some point, maybe. But I'll talk wrestling anytime I'm conscious and always willing to jump on. So it's good to be here and good to chat with some new faces as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I distinctly remember doing WWE shows with you. So I think I'm right. I wish they were more memorable to you. I feel kind of bad.
Oh wow!
I know. Yes. I'm looking it up to see if I'm right or wrong here. Okay, Dynamite. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I did do a couple of Wrestling Night in Americas. Maybe you're misremembering on that.
Yeah, I was about to say you did SmackDown on the 14th, but that's today. So.
I did, in fact, do that.
Yes, that's wild. When I say I distinctly remember, it's crazy that I'm looking at the chart here and I marched back. Oh, nope, yep. I don't know. You might be right. That's weird. Anyway, I'll research later. Research further later. All right, let's get back to the conversation in the show here. So, Chris, what do you want to bring up as main topic number 2? We talked about the crowd, but we talked mostly about Jade.
I really want to talk about that Drew McIntyre vignette.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Yeah, that was good.
I think that match had enough gravitas behind it already that people were excited to see it for WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
But then Drew laid out things from a different perspective that added even more weight to a match that honestly didn't need it. And I don't think we get to complain about that too often. And it's not even really a complaint. It's just they built up a match that was already really well built up and gave it an entirely new angle that I hadn't seen too many people talking about. You know, how Priest didn't just eliminate Drew from the Rumble, but Priest was in the ring every single time Drew got messed up.
It was actually kind of like, wow,
yeah,
Drew's right. Like, that's crazy. Every moment of success Priest has had came at the expense of Drew getting screwed over. Like, it's, again, Drew is right.
And that's part of what makes him such a great character right now.
Yeah.
He's that justified heel who goes about things the wrong way. And I thought him sitting on the announce table waving when he was there for Drew was for Priest was an excellent touch. I'm really enjoying everything he's been doing. I do wish they had let him get a bit more of a top of the card title run, but there's just so many names in that picture right now. You can understand why he didn't. But yeah, he's just everything he touches right now is just gold.
Yeah, Dr. Doom says Drew is always right. Drew is so effective. This is a little sidebar, but I don't like the announcers not saying something happening right in front of them that's off camera until it's on camera. I know that directors think, oh, never talk about anything you can't see on the monitor. Like, that's been an edict of WWE announcers forever. And wrestling announcers in general are told that. Like, don't talk about things that people can't see. But when there's, like, I wish Tessitore, because Tessitore does not feel like a con man PR guy for WWE. I love Joe Tessitore's announcing style. And he's the type of guy who I want to hear going, what are you doing? What are you doing here? I can't get out. Like, where you're like, what's going on? What's going on? Like, emotionally, I can't imagine him not reacting, like resisting reacting. He doesn't have to say what it is, but something like that. I would like to see that, just so it's not like, especially when the crowd is reacting and the announcers are ignoring why the crowd's reacting. So small little parenthetical, but from a production technique, I don't think they have revisited that, but I think I'd like to see them revisit that rule.
I think it was Wade Barrett who said before they switched the camera, I can't see anything because there's a 6'5" Scotsman sat in front of me.
Did he say that?
I think it was Wade. It might have been Joe.
Okay. Oh, well, I withdraw my criticism, and now it's 0 for 2 for me on my memory. I don't know how I missed that. So good call that they did that. They don't normally do it. I'll go back and watch that. I don't think I was critical of it in my written report. So I think Drew sitting there and distracting Priest is a bit of a trope. Oh, I'm distracted. But I get Priest, like, briefly being distracted by Drew. He's not even supposed to be there. And, because didn't they establish earlier, he left, Nick Aldis said he left the building. Was that, am I in the right order on that?
No, Priest asked where he was, and Aldis said, I don't know.
Okay. I thought he said, I think, okay. But so.
Oh, yeah, he might have said he left the building. Yeah, I do know he said, I don't know, but I think he might have said something after that.
Yeah. But you can understand that Drew would want to taunt Priest in that way, and that Priest would be susceptible to it. And so it worked for me in that it wasn't like Priest wasn't like so on the verge of winning and he just dropped everything. It was like startled, and then boom, it just all came at him. And so I thought they handled that pretty well too. So they got me more interested in this match because of reminding us and owning that history. Yeah. And I mean, Drew's great, and I actually thought Priest was good. I thought the crowd, and I don't know if Priest was getting irked by the crowd a little bit, but like it seemed like, hey guys, I'm here. Like, pay attention to me. And it seemed like there was CM Punk chant and different things going on. But overall, I think Priest was really good in his role, also reacting to everything going on. This felt like when at first it felt like Priest has nothing going on, Drew has nothing going on. Let's just have them hit each other in the Royal Rumble. And then you see this video and you're like, wait a second, they've been planning this match for a year, and it'd be a shame if it didn't happen at WrestleMania. Like, I think that's kind of the whole, like, how much that vignette just reminded us of things we knew, but it hadn't been presented all at once in that compact amount of time.
And I do, in a way, feel sorry for Shinsuke, because it's not very often that somebody gets distracted and then they still win the match. I don't know, maybe his contract's coming up soon and he's leaving. I don't know if anyone's done any reporting on that recently. I did hear somebody get aggregated about I had to do that. I had to. I feel sorry for Shinsuke, honestly, because I love this new gimmick. I love the entrance. I love everything about it. But it's almost like he just doesn't care anymore. I mean, he lost the title, and now he gets beaten by a distracted Damian Priest. The Priest and McIntyre match should be a de facto number one contenders match, apart from anything else. But it's going to be good. Like, those two should just beat 7 shades of daylight out of each other.
Yeah, I thought Nakamura felt a little more engaged than you're framing it tonight. I mean, they protected him a little bit because it was a DQ finish. He hit the Kinshasa afterwards. He didn't just like roll out of the ring and go disappear. So I mean, I think they're kind of keeping him in the mix. But I mean, he eventually left, but he got in his last dig after his last shot afterwards. So I don't know. I mean, the bar is not super high for Nakamura to seem engaged relative to, in his entire WWE stint. But I mean, I don't know. I think they've gotten a lot out of him on this run. I mean, I think a year ago people were like, oh, he's, there's not a lot significant left to do with him. And I think the way they've been presenting him with the vignettes has been really effective, and kind of, reworked his character enough that there's something, he got a good run in recent months. I mean, not great, but good, and I mean, really, there's not room at the top for Nakamura to be a top guy. So having him just be, a colorful legacy character, in the second tier is fine with me.
Wait, so there are companies that don't just bring in every famous legacy name they can and put them to the top and then forget about them 3 months later? I thought that was just how all wrestling companies were.
We're here to talk WWE, not take digs at AEW, Chris. You can't help yourself.
I didn't name names.
Well, yes. By the way, Aldous did say that he was told Drew left the building, so he didn't know, but he did say he was told he left the building. So, okay. Anything else on Drew Priest? No,
I'm even more excited to see it than I was.
Yeah, yep. That's a successful segment, and it's why vignettes can really work. I mean, the editing of that, Drew's delivery, worked really well. But people are still going to, cheer Priest because I don't know why, but Drew can be 100% right, make all kinds of good points, and still have fans boo him. Okay, so check comment here. CJ LaChapelle said, I like Shinsuke, but not as much as some fans like him. Kyle Fassel said he seemed the best when he first came in, kind of downhill after that, slowly, though. His best stuff was in NXT. That's what it just felt like. He was very excited. Derek Hubbard said the new bar for Nakamura is Okada. As long as he looks like he's trying harder than Okada, he gets a passing grade from me. Kyle Fassel said, Shin has never clicked with me. Brock Bedingfield says, Chris, I love the new presentation of Shinsuke, but something is amiss. Derek said, I have high hopes for Priest and Drew at Mania. Both guys have something to prove and have a chip on their shoulder. Never underestimate talented and hungry wrestlers. Then Sadler version 3 says, I'm actually the opposite of Chris on Drew Priest. I felt Priest was below Drew as a WrestleMania opponent and was disappointed in this match. But the vignette today sold me, and now I'm excited for it. Yeah, so... Oh, and it's somewhat, let's see, Mark Pescetti says, there's good go back and watch Nakamura and Sammy when he first came in. And Mark Pescetti said Nakamura lost when he faced AJ at WrestleMania. So there we have it.
That was not good.
Before I get to Sean Plichta, I want to bring up the reaction LA Knight got at the top of the show. We talked about the crowd. LA Knight comes out and seemed actually, like, I'm inferring here from body language and cadence, but he seemed a little like choked up emotion like this. Like, I almost felt he was going, my God, I'm here and this is happening. He's almost going to pinch himself. Like, I'm overseas in front of this raucous crowd and they're going absolutely nuts for me. And I'm not even pushed as a top guy. And he had the benefit, I don't know if they did dark match, but he had the benefit of being the first guy on SmackDown proper. And, if you're a babyface, you're going to get a big pop. But that had to be I'm not saying a career highlight for LA Knight. He's had a lot of actually amazing moments in WWE, but you could tell this meant something to him. You just don't know how a European crowd's going to react to a guy whose gimmick is based on being an obnoxious, cocky guy from LA. So yeah, Chris, what'd you think of that reaction to him?
Yeah, it was incredibly loud. So was the one that Orton got right before it, just for walking backstage.
Yes.
Those two off the top of the show just made me think, okay, we're in for one heck of a loud night. I can only imagine what LA Knight felt coming out to that. It must have been overwhelming because you're not used to that. I don't know how many people are in the building, but I think there are quite a few people on the card who would have got a similar reaction, but he can feel pretty good that it was him that got it.
Yeah. Yep. And so, and I thought it was, sometimes this parade of wrestlers that WWE does gets criticized. And so you have Jimmy coming out and going, I want to be US champ. And then Solo comes out and it's another thing. But it actually, I'm sympathetic to, they have 104 original 2 or 3 hour shows every year to produce, and having something feel, in this case, even though it's part of a trope and a pattern they do, it felt kind of organic. It made sense that Jimmy would go, hey, I don't have a big, I don't look at the lay of the land and think I'm guaranteed to have a spot at WrestleMania. But if I beat you, I can. It's like, okay, so they're building the WrestleMania brand, how important it is to wrestlers, how it's not guaranteed that they'll be on it. It's more believable with Jimmy than it was when John Cena was melodramatically talking about that. So this worked for me. And then Solo comes out with his crew, 3-on-2 attack. Because Solo says, hey, Jacob should get the match. And then Braun comes out, which I like babyface run-ins to even the odds. And then it flows into a 6-man tag that was unannounced and went 12 minutes and a ton of action, running around, knocking people over. And it helped build up a match next week. I'm totally fine with this booking. I thought it was constructed, logically executed well with a mix of talent that the crowd reacted to. Chris, you're less enthusiastic based on body language.
I'm not a fan of the parade of challenges in general. The whole I want to be on WrestleMania thing doesn't feel novel to me anymore. You mentioned Cena. Seth Rollins did it as well. That's where we got the Cody Rhodes debut. I don't remember if anyone did it last year. I feel like somebody did, and it ended up being part of a segment that we'd all rather forget, but I can't remember the details of it. But the point being, they've done it a few times, and it doesn't feel novel anymore. The whole US title thing, there have been multiple years where the secondary titles weren't even defended on WrestleMania because they just had other more important things to do. So, it was fine. It wasn't offensive or anything, and it did make sense. It's just, it wasn't for me.
Derek Hubbard says about LA Knight, I'm happy to see LA Knight get some flowers. I was on some shows with him in Showcase Wrestling from Hollywood. The guy's always been all in on his diet, training, promos, and performance. So nice endorsement there from someone who worked with him. Thanks for that anecdote, Derek. Jacob Fatu getting cheered a lot, Chris, in WWE. It seemed like this crowd was more willing to cheer Braun, but they were into Fatu too. What do you make of the crowd dynamic for Fatu? Did this feel different to you? Does WWE have a problem? If you're Braun, are you like, why you put me against this heel who's mega popular? Or is Braun doing enough to kind of earn his role here?
I have to wonder how much of that was due to just the nature of what those two were doing and the going back and running down the aisle and spearing him through the barricade and stuff. Fatu is one of those guys that makes you want to watch him even if he's technically a heel, because he does spectacular things. Spectacular in the context of WWE, where the floor is a lot higher, but the ceiling is a lot lower. So when Fatu does something that you can see on a lot of shows, it still feels special because you don't see it on WWE as often. I don't think I'd say they have a problem with him yet. The clear plan is to split him and Solo up, and I think they'd be trying to push water uphill to make Solo a face. So you'd have to expect that Jacob Fatu is the one who's going face when that does split, and I think then they'll just go all in on what the crowd reaction has been. I don't know how soon that's going to be. It might be as soon as WrestleMania, but I don't think it's a problem yet.
Yep. All right. Let's Sean, can you stand by for a second? Not okay. Yep. We're going to go to Jason D in Australia because sometimes his time's a little more limited. Let's bring Jason into the conversation. A lot more still on the plate, and Jason can react to what we've been saying so far, too. Jason, welcome. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Wade. Thanks, Chris. I want to talk about Tiffany and Charlotte. They had quite a big segment.
Absolutely.
With the brawls and everything, and I think they're trying to really heat up that match, obviously, give it a bit of juice, give it a bit of animosity. And I think they did a pretty good job. To be honest with you, of all the matches, how they booked this match at WrestleMania, I'm really keen to see how they do this. That's what I'm keen for. So what are you guys thinking about how they're going to book this match, and who do you think is going to win?
Chris, I mean, the crowd loved Tiffy time. I want to talk about Charlotte's match with BFAB too. But yeah, what do they do? What do they do here? Is Charlotte in the? And I'm trying to think, did tonight's show give us any clues to what Jason's bringing up? But are we at a point where Charlotte should be putting over Tiffany? Should this be a back and forth when the feud is over? There's a winner, but it's sort of like a best of 7 that was close. Not that they have 7 matches. I mean, like a sports series, you go, well, it could have gone either way, but one person won. Or does Charlotte beat Tiffany because they tell the story? Maybe Tiffany's got to the top too quick, and she fights from underneath a little bit. Various options they can do here.
3 years ago, I would have said Charlotte beats Tiffany because she's Charlotte Flair. And that's what Charlotte does at WrestleMania. It's less clear now. I don't have a great feel for where this is going to go. But I think that's pretty much been a hallmark of the booking recently, is that they put you in these situations where the big matches could go 7 different directions. We didn't know who was going to win the Rumble. We weren't sure who was going to win Elimination Chamber. They've given us these matches where we can try and guess, but there are so many options. Obviously, there's not that many options in this match, but I could see either one of them winning. Yeah. They've made Tiffany look like she belongs on the same page as Charlotte. Mm-hmm. And they've embraced the fact that nobody seems excited to see Charlotte anymore. So they've really made her into a heel that people are happy to dislike. The brawl, I thought, was excellent. That's putting aside the fact that those poor security guards are never going to be able to show their faces again at work. I thought that the coming back out once Miz TV had started was a really nice touch you don't see enough of.
Yeah.
And it did build more anticipation for a match that some people were thinking is going to be a foregone conclusion. I'm less convinced now. I don't think they'd be putting this much time into it if they weren't still trying to figure out the best way to go. So I still think it's going to be Charlotte, but I'm less certain on it than I was.
The security guards, at least this time, felt like they were just doing their jobs and got in the way more than they were overtly attacked. It was like sometimes just security guards just getting attacked. That's what bugs me. But when they're doing their job, but a wrestler's just pushing them aside to try to get to their opponent that they're feuding with, that's sort of collateral damage that comes with the territory more than just a wrestler standing in the ring. Oh, security wants me to leave the ring. I'm going to punch you and give you my finisher. That's the part that offends me more. I will say it would have been nice if Tiffany had slightly better aim on that final move that you're talking that in the brawl where she leaps off the balcony and she hit a bunch of security guys and then they sort of all tumbled over like bowling pins bumping into each other. But she was like 6 feet from Charlotte. I don't know how you get that far off, but that was not great.
She did the same thing earlier when she came off the ring post, and Charlotte was sort of to the left of where she hit.
Yeah.
Everybody else fell down, and Charlotte just sort of looked around and went, "Oh, I guess I fall down too." Yeah. Charlotte should know all about missing moves to the outside off the top rope. That's kind of her forte. Yes. To me, the issue is not them getting beat up. The issue is you had 15, 20 big, strong men out there that couldn't restrain 2 women who are smaller than them. And this isn't a gender thing at all. It's the fact that these are much smaller people than you, and they still manage to overpower you all the time. It was just a little silly, but I enjoyed the brawl. And that match I wasn't looking forward to very much. Now I kind of want to see it.
Cool. Some chat comments. Goodfellow 1422 goes, she did miss her on both jumps. Kyle Fassel said, I'm starting to feel like all the pull-apart brawls are a rib to the fans or something. It literally happens on every show. I do think Levesque, one thing we're learning about Levesque is, and actually it's true of a lot of bookers, but if they like doing something, they do it. They have a tendency to do it too often. And a good idea in isolation isn't a good idea in the context of it being done every week and multiple times on a show. There was a spot where Fatu was leaving and then charged back at Braun, and then that happened also later in the show. Someone was leaving and then they charged back. Was that the Charlotte Tiffany brawl, or was it another one? But it was almost like designed the exact same way. Like, okay, I'm leaving. No, I'm not. I don't know if quality control is the right term, but for something to really stand out, you can't just do it all the time. And even like opening the show with like chaos was the thing that Levesque did, but now he's pulled back on that a little bit. Shows are just starting normally now. But there are diminishing returns to anything. There's diminishing returns to spamming finishers and kicking out. There's diminishing returns to long matches where you know the outcome and it takes 14 minutes to get to it. And, there's just some things that are novel lose their novelty and lose their effectiveness when they're done too much. So, but I thought it was of something that's being done too much. As Kyle points out, it was a good version of it. I mean, I thought, other than missing on the dives, I thought that there was a good intensity to it. And obviously the crowd being into it helped. All right, I'll go back to Jason in a sec, but Tyler version 3 goes, normally I would have thought Charlotte is surely winning, but the fact that the main roster is severely lacking new stars in the women's division on both shows, they really need Tiffany to win. Jason, back to you.
Well, see, I'm 100% certain that Charlotte's going to win this match.
Okay, interesting.
100% certain, because I'm trying to look at the story they're trying to tell here. Well, no, it's not a spoiler. I'm trying to look at the story that they're trying to tell here, right? And you have to acknowledge with Tiffany that right now she has a mid-card personality. With the toodles and the way she talks sometimes, it's mid-card. But she's main event talent with her look, what she can do in the ring, and she's proven she's tough. So I believe that the story they're going to try and tell with her is you've got Tiffy time, but then you're going to have Tiffy toughness. And I can see Charlotte applying that figure 8 in the ring and Tiffy holding on, and just finally submitting, but proving her toughness. Mm-hmm. I can see Charlotte working over her leg. Like, I can see Charlotte as the veteran taking Tiffany to school on the big stage, but Tiffany proving her toughness. And then Charlotte wins the match, and then she refuses to give Tiffy the rematch. So now we're going to see Tiffany as the babyface with fire, who Charlotte knows that on her day, Tiffany could beat her, but Charlotte's going to sort of keep her at bay. Almost like Charlotte, almost a version of Gunther in a sense, when Gunther didn't want to, give title shots to certain people because he deep down knew that they could defeat him. So I could see Charlotte playing that role and that helping Tiffany's character. I don't think Tiffany gets further over by winning this match. I think her character gets further over by having a great showing and then showing that babyface fire. And we see her in the chase, because we've never seen her officially as a babyface in the chase, and Charlotte trying to keep her at bay. So that's the way I see that match playing out. In relation to other things on the show, with Bianca and Jade, Bianca's not in on this, but I can easily see her going over to Naomi's side, because the way this has played out, Jade has already, she's gotten her revenge on Naomi twice in a week with brutal beatdowns. Now, you normally don't see that when a heel sort of has a sneak attack and lays out a babyface for a while. It kind of takes the babyface a while to get their revenge because they want to build up to it. But there's no real anticipation to see Naomi get her revenge because Jade's already taken her out twice, both times, like laid her out. So the story I think they might be trying to tell here is that Jade could continue to beat up Naomi whenever she sees her, to the point that Bianca starts to feel a bit of, starts to feel sorry for Naomi, that maybe even Jade's taken it too far. And that leads to Jade turning on Bianca, because the stories that we've been seeing told with WWE is that eventually somebody turns or has a change of attitude when they feel like that someone else isn't acknowledged how wrong they've been. We've seen that with Kevin Owens. We've seen that with Drew McIntyre, that somebody gets wronged in a certain way and the other people don't see this. And then when they take their revenge on that person or do the thing, other people turn against them. It's all about revenge and not being able to handle it. And I think that's the story they might tell here with Bianca and Jade. So my thing is, Bianca's not in on it, but eventually she might turn to Naomi because she feels a bit of sympathy and starts to think that, well, Naomi was looking out for me. So I think that's a long-term story they're trying to tell here.
Chris, what do you think of that?
It's got legs. I like some of the way you're going with that.
It addresses the idea. It feels like there's something else here, even we can't put our finger on it.
And it would be a new angle. I don't recall seeing anything like that before, where, because clearly Bianca right now is like, yes, please go beat her up. I'm not going to stand in your way. But if that keeps happening, at some point, you'd expect her to say, okay, I think she's had enough. She's paid for what she did. Why are you continuing to do this? But that also then almost turns Naomi back to a face, because what Bianca's doing is a face thing to do to protect her friend, and Jade then looks like the heel. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's the intended dynamic, but there's some potential there for that type of a story. I would be curious to see if that's what they're intending all along.
Levesque might disagree with some nuance, but I mean, he doesn't seem afraid to kind of let people pick. You got Seth as a babyface, feuding with babyfaces. You got Heyman ripping on Seth while also encouraging OTC chants, but it's not like Seth's a heel. You have DIY and the Street Profits. Street Profits newly turned, DIY semi-newly turned. They're fighting each other in a pick'em. I mean, we could go on and on. I think Levesque is not scared to just throw wrestlers out there and let the fans decide. I don't think that would be I think it's infrequently, if not rarely, the best way to go. You know, I mean, I would compare it to neutral site NHL games. I mean, if you live in Toronto, I don't think you care about the Islanders facing the Minnesota Wild. It's just like, I mean, as good as the game is, and so why would you deliberately book that if you didn't have to? There's a reason, you know, that half the games are played in your home arena, or all games are played in a home arena, barring, you know, a game having to be moved due to fires or natural disaster or something. So I think Levesque does that too much. And to me, you want to make it really clear that, like, someone's a heel and someone's a face in this feud. But I'm just saying, I wouldn't rule out Levesque's like, if that's a problem, whatever, let the fans choose. And again, I think he leans on that too much. I disagree with that philosophy, if that is his philosophy. Maybe it's more circumstantial because, I got more baby faces than heels, so I just go in the singles division in the top tier, and I have more heel tag teams. And it's a fresh matchup, and I need to switch the belts, and it's something he does, but sort of semi-begrudgingly. And we're still new enough in his booking tenure to not draw what'll necessarily be long-term conclusions about his philosophy, and his philosophy might change over time too. So anyway, I threw all that out there. Jason, back to you.
Well, no, I agree with what you said, Chris, because it almost does turn Naomi back babyface, what I laid out, but I'm only trying to predict where I think they might be heading with this. And I would actually like to see a women's feud that has a bit of legs to it, that has a bit of meat, has something that we can sink our teeth into, and a little bit of nuance with besides the women's championship matches, because I don't feel like we've really had like a women's feud that we could really sink our teeth into, kind of like with the men, where you've got the intricate parts of Seth and Roman and CM Punk and Drew McIntyre and Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and the Bloodline. I'd like to see something where we can think a little bit about what the women here, maybe see different points of view, because ultimately just Jade with her overall look and the way she comes across with her confidence, I think she's very cool, but she's definitely more suited to a heel role. And I think we all see Money with her just plowing through the division and somebody standing up to her. So I'm not too sure about her in this sympathetic role, how long that's going to last. Hence why I'm intrigued by the fact that she's already gotten her revenge against Naomi twice in a week. She's just dominated her.
Yep,
so where do you go from there?
Well, Jason, throw it back to you. I mean, what do you think of my comment about Levesque and his booking approach, which is, there's no true good and bad people. There's just people who have disagreements with each other.
Well, okay, you can't listen. I don't mind if you do that in a couple of feuds here and there and a couple of people. For example, Seth Rollins is a babyface, but he clearly hates Roman Reigns and CM Punk. So just because he's a babyface doesn't mean he has to get along with other babyfaces. I mean, it doesn't mean he has to get along with all of them, because he gets along with Sammy and he gets along with Jay. So he's going to have issues there. But you're right, you don't want that. But maybe they feel because they're on Netflix, and a lot of Netflix shows and Max shows, they all have certain characters where you can sort of see their point of view sometimes and not. Maybe he feels like he can do that with a certain amount of stars that can pull it off. But for the vast majority, we're going to keep them black and white, because it's not like this is a uniform thing that's across all the talent. He keeps it to specific talent that he knows can pull it off. Yeah.
And on these series, it's a 13 episode or 8 episode season. They spend a year or two writing the scripts. The shows are 40 minutes to an hour, 10 minutes, and they're used top level actors, and there's a singular lead. Sometimes it's a hero, sometimes it's a villain, sometimes it's a lead who you kind of root for, but reluctantly, but the story's compelling and they're flawed. None of that applies to pro wrestling. Like, I mean, it just, the circumstances are so different. There's not just one lead person. If wrestling only had one lead person and they told this intricately written story with them, or a small ensemble, that's one thing. But when you have a live audience and you're selling tickets, and clearly crowds, when you see the reaction to LA Knight and Jey Uso, much less Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, I mean, that's where the money is. And Chad is agreeing. I mean, like Brock Bedingfield says, one of the core elements of pro wrestling is heel versus face. It should be baked in. And it doesn't, when we say pro wrestling, a weekly TV series meant to draw ratings, repeating the same towns on tour with a history that WWE has that is mega successful. Don't mess with that. Don't mess with that. Now, if you want to be an alternative and you want to appeal to a different group, which by definition, I would argue will be quite a bit smaller than the home team, away team, NHL analogy I use. If you're going to try to sell people on great hockey without a home team, with people who aren't really worth rooting for or rooting against, but they're complicated people, and you try to tell that story, you're going to have a smaller audience, but it might be profitable, and it might be an alternative that can actually exist against WWE. But for WWE, the business they're in, I think the idea of faces and heels being baked in makes sense. Dr. Doom says, I think the philosophy of there's so many options actually dissipates a fan's anticipation of any singular person winning, similar to apathy. And Dr. Doom says, by the way, Charlotte and Tiffany are still both heels. I mean, that's a whole other issue. Chris, do you want to jump in on any of this?
I think the apathy comment is interesting, because I think that's something that fans in this space get used to being able to predict who's going to win, and they like to be proven right in that space. Mm-hmm. I actually prefer it when I go into a match and I don't have a good idea of who's going to win. I've been watching wrestling for a very, very long time, and it's very hard to surprise me in wrestling anymore. So the fact that they've managed to do that a couple of times over the past year or so is actually a nice change for me. And I don't mind going in not knowing what the result's going to be.
Jason, back to you. Any thoughts on this, or you can change topics if you still got other things?
Well, just like I don't want to make it like what I'm trying to say is that I'm not saying that you have like shades of like you just have all these shades of grey, but Seth Rollins' character for me has been the most interesting and intriguing. And when he cuts down on that ha-ha type of business and he cuts a serious promo, he's been money. And he has been intriguing to watch. Like Rock said, he was the MVP of WrestleMania. And throughout the whole year following WrestleMania, I know he had that bit of time off, he has made it clear that he hates certain baby faces, he hates certain heels, but he likes certain baby faces. Now, Seth Rollins is a babyface. As a babyface, you are allowed to dislike other babyfaces with a passion, but still be a babyface. That's not shades of grey for me. That's just intelligent storytelling and keeping someone true to their constitution and character.
Yes, I see what you're saying, and there's still the issue of this analogy doesn't hold up really well, but I'll make it anyway. If you have the New York Rangers hockey team and their star players are saying awful things about the New York Knicks basketball players, and then the New York Knicks basketball players are saying mean things about the New York Rangers, you have two home teams. You like them both, but they're saying these awful things about each other, some of which kind of ring true. And it's kind of taking you out of just that willful, weird state we get in where we have no say-so over who our players are, basically, and yet we cheer for them passionately and we wear their jerseys and they're our hero because we follow their journey closely. And, people whose journeys we follow closest and who are kind of part of the fabric, and they come to our town and we get to see them in person. I mean, there's logic to cheering for your home team, but it's also like you don't know if these are good people, and if a trade happens, you suddenly don't like that player anymore and you like the new guy, or well, not always. Sometimes you're mad at the GM, like the Dallas Mavericks. But nevertheless, so to me, they don't face each other, hockey and NBA players, but having two sets of athletes who you like bad-mouthing each other can kind of take some of the shine off of both. And so I like it as a novelty, but I don't like to defend it as something that should be in the fabric repeatedly. And I think there's a little more of it than there ought to be. But again, track record for Paul Levesque is short. He's inheriting a lot of things. We'll see how we do. I would just argue, and I've said this before, this boom period is not because of shades of gray and nuance and making people choose between two wrestlers they like and having heels face each other. This boom period is because of people loving Sami Zayn, hating Paul Heyman and the Bloodline, loving Cody Rhodes, loving Rhea Ripley. It's about passionately and almost uniformly being for or against someone. I don't think this is a time to become an artist and try to reinvent things. Just stick with a formula. And plug people in who are interesting, cast them correctly, listen to the fans, cast them in a way that lines up with how the fans feel about them, and then enhance those features that they like. Stick with that formula. But Jason, you're not wrong. I just don't want that to be, I don't want you framing it as justifiable to be, to be put out there as, so there should just be a lot more of that.
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
I'm saying that your top stars can afford to do that in certain circumstances, because if you go back to the Bloodline with the boom period, remember Sami Zayn was a babyface in a heel group and the crowd popped large. Think about this. When you go to that War Games event where Sami Zayn turned on Kevin Owens, the babyface, and he showed his commitment to the Bloodline, one of the biggest pops was Jey Uso, a heel, giving Sami Zayn a hug as if to say, you're accepted in this heel group Bloodline, and the crowd still cheered for it. So the whole thing, that whole thing doesn't make any sense. But the people were intrigued by the story and the complexity of the characters. You can get away with that with a certain amount of stars that can pull it off in certain stories, but you definitely don't want that uniformly across. I don't think Triple H is doing it as much as what you might be saying, but I agree with you 100%. You don't want this, but you can in certain situations. One thing I do need to push back on before I go, Wade, and I'm strong against this. I have never understood this argument that Drew McIntyre is the babyface in any of anything, and I really hope Damian Priest brings this up. Number one, Drew McIntyre. First of all, when he said to CM Punk, "I prayed for this to happen," that to me is like the worst thing you could ever say to anyone. That somebody gets hurt and you think that because you're praying for it, like that to me, now you're involving the man upstairs. Now this is some divine type of stuff. No. That's the worst thing you could say. But Damian Priest has to point out that all he did at WrestleMania was take advantage of a situation that anyone else would have, that Drew McIntyre tried to do it and he backfired because he wasn't good enough. And explain to me how Drew was screwed over in the Royal Rumble or the Elimination Chamber. He was eliminated fair and square in both of them. He was thrown out and he was rolled up. He has nobody to blame for himself. I don't see how he's right in any of this, which makes his character so great.
Yes. So he's right about everything, but the context that you bring up is what makes him a heel. So, and therefore he's not a babyface. But when you listen to him make his case, and granted, there are some things he said about Punk where the crowd's like, well, yeah, kind of. And so we kind of base it on that. But in the end, the reason it's working is because of what you're saying, Jason, that deep down you can listen to Drew say something and you might even nod along and go, oh, they're making sense. But part of you knows it's selective interpretation. It's He's being hypocritical. He's framing something in a way that leaves out an important detail. But the story Drew presents is something where you're like, I kind of see where he's coming from. And then you think a little more about it. You go, yeah, but he's a hypocrite and he's a whiner and he needs to get over it. He needs to dust himself off and he's done worse. But when you put that video package together and you make the case, everything good that's happened to Damian has been an opportunistic moment that had something to do with me getting screwed over. He's not even saying Damian's screwing him over. He's just sort of saying Damian's always there to screw me over after I've been screwed over. So I don't think you're right. It's not right to just say, oh, he's a babyface, but he comes across as one in the selective presentation, as shaded as it is. Chris, what do you think?
It's the Thanos theory, right? The idea that he's getting screwed over is valid, but his methods and the way he's framing it is getting across through sheer force of charisma to sound like he has a point. I don't think anybody can argue that he's a face in all of this, but the way he's making his point, it's based in truth, and those are the best villains, where their motives are based on good points or on truths. They're just interpreting them different, and they're approaching it in a way that nobody could endorse.
Jason.
And before I go, you got Sean coming up, but Good on you, Sean, mate. He always speaks nicely to me, so I'll let you get to him. But just one point. Once again, we heard the term quarterback referred to in Cody and Miz's thing. I think Miz referred to Cody Rhodes as the quarterback, QB1 or something. Again, pointing to the fact that Cody Rhodes has taken over the role of the number one guy in the company. And I keep mentioning this. Cody keeps talking about the title's not that heavy for me now, that I'm the number one guy, that I've taken over, that I can steer the ship. To me, this is all content for Cena to come back on and be resentful of the fact that Cody is now the guy now, and Cena never thought anyone deep down would be able to take his spot, but he is. I think this is all leading to like a big Hill Cena promo talking about this. They just keep mentioning how Cody's the number one guy.
Chris?
Yeah, it's interesting that they are hammering that hard. QB1 as well doesn't mean a lot to people outside of North America. I don't know how many people are going to know what that actually means. But it's a good point. I think that's going to be some of the ammunition that Cena is going to use, maybe even as a justification for joining in with The Rock and saying, look, this guy has taken my spot literally and figuratively speaking, and I'm not ready to give that up yet. And yeah, it's a good justification, and I can see it happening.
I like Cody, by the way, tonight. We haven't gotten into his segment. Just going, I don't want to talk about anything. I don't talk to anybody. I just want to hear from John Cena. I thought I was critical of that, not critical, but I felt that was missing from the two promos. It needed to be emphasized more. And Cody, I complimented Cody's promo. I mean, it was a very, very few people could do what Cody did last Friday on SmackDown. Monday felt a little watered down, just like I got to be here because it's MSG. Tonight was short and sweet, but it got back on track to where I think Cody should be, which is all that I'm thinking about is what Cena did to me. And I kind of want it to feel personal to Cody, like how not, oh, woe is me, how could my hero do this? But something that just goes, what the hell? I can't wrap my brain around this. I'm angry about it. And it's so. And I don't know if it's because Cody doesn't want to, he doesn't know how to, there's part of it just like, does Cody even feel like he's being given the right direction from The Rock and his inner circle if they're not around? He doesn't want to screw it up, so he's kind of trying to stay away from it. But now we're a week out, or a few days out. So, now it's time to start getting people excited to see those two in the ring together. All right, cool, Jason. Anything else?
No, I'm out. Nice talking to you again, Wade. Always
Thanks,
appreciate
Jason.
the show. Good on you, Chris. Take care.
Cheers, mate. Take care.
All right, let's bring Sean from Tennessee into the program. Sean, welcome.
Oh, this guy.
I know.
Jason, I will move aside any day for you, buddy. You always, and I want to say about the Drew thing too. That's what I was laughing when Drew was talking in that promo, which was great. I mean, I did love it. I mean, I thought it was all good. And, the biggest one, Drew, you're kind of missing, buddy, was WrestleMania when you decided to gloat and be all happy. Look at me. Look what I did. And you got suckered in. Sorry, buddy. That's all your fault. But I love how he presents it, though. It's so good. I mean, but going back to what Jason said, I wanted to bring up a few things before I start complimenting all of you guys how awesome you are. About the Tiffany Charlotte stuff, I mean, it was fine tonight, other than, like you said, all the things you guys talked about. The brawl's overdone. Please stop doing brawls every week. Like, we can do something without having to be a brawl. But I just think Tiffany, going into this babyface turn, she could have shown more fire, shown more of her character leading into the babyface turn. I think Tiffany has to win. I just don't think she can lose and, I get my win back. That's not good booking. Just have Tiffany go over. You have women you need to build strong. Just tell a good story with her as a babyface. Don't be like, oh, I need to have fire to become a good babyface. Just be a good babyface and win the title and move on. I don't understand why it's got to be, oh, she's got to lose. And I'm not blaming Jason. I'm just saying, tell a good story going into that, to not where we have to all of a sudden her lose for her to become a good babyface. I just don't understand why you have to go that route. Just be a good babyface going into the match and then win the match and move on. So that's my thing there. And then the big thing, Chris, man, I knew you were going to talk WWE at some point. I knew it was coming. I was like, Chris is going to talk WWE, and I can't wait because this is going to be great. But how are you guys doing? It's always fun to be on here with you guys.
Doing good.
Yeah, it was a good night.
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
show to watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. It was. My main issue that I want to talk about, and it hasn't been really brought up in full, is all the stuff with Gunther. So I think this is intriguing to me. I honestly did not like this segment at all, honestly.
Okay.
I not from what Gunther did. I love what Gunther does. I love the fact that he wants to come out and show people up. My only issue with this was with Otis last week. People were saying that it was bad last week that he gave Otis a lot of offense, and I didn't agree. I was like, okay, I understand Otis. The fans love him. Let him get a few spots here and there. Now you could have said it went with Axiom. I know Axiom. I've seen him in NXT. Axiom should not be getting. I know he's in Spain. I know where they are. Axiom should not be taking Gunther. If you're saying that Gunther is going to, Jake said, "Oh, Gunther is going to dominate me. There's no way I can win." And Gunther is getting dominated by Axiom, who a lot of people have never seen before. Wade, you can't. No, that can't happen.
I don't think he dominated him.
Yes,
I think
he got a lot of offense.
Well,
in,
he got
a lot of offense in. Too much.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Mommy and Daddy, you're fighting again.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
No, I know. I'm good. Listen, I've been on with Eric and Wade. This is nothing. First of all, I will not stand for the slander and this erasure of the first Spanish-born WWE superstar, who, as we all know, is actually Kane, not Axiom. I will not allow this. I can justify Axiom's offense because hubris is the answer, as it always is. Gunther thought he was going to have a walk in the park, and Axiom surprised him.
But
Axiom but
he's a dominant champion. He's supposed to be a dominant champion. If Jay's telling the story that I can't beat him and nothing I do can beat this guy, and you have Gunther struggling to beat Axiom, that is a problem.
Struggle, though. He is a dominant champion, but he's a cocky dominant champion. He thinks he's above Axiom. He didn't bother to study him. He didn't bother to research him. He just called him out and figured,
that's the one fair
this
point.
tiny guy from developmental, I'm going to smack him a couple of times. And he did. He hit his power bomb early. He wasn't banking on Axiom kicking out. And then Axiom fired up from there. I thought that was fine. They needed to give, if they're going to bring Axiom on, you can't just have him get dominated in Spain. That crowd deserved a bit of a cookie. He was always going to lose. The match went, 9 minutes, I think? It wasn't long. To be fair, we rag on Kenny Omega for giving, Alex Reynolds offense on Dynamite. You've got to do the same thing here and say maybe it was a bit too much. But I think in this case, you can justify it.
And also, the announcers outright said Gunther maybe took Axiom too lightly when Axiom got an early offense. And also, by the way, Sean, your reaction, well channeled in a certain way, isn't disconnected from what WWE wants. What they want is people to think Gunther can be rattled, that Gunther's vulnerable. And if Axiom can get a 2 count on him, if Axiom can get in that much offense, Jay's got a shot to win. They want to keep people's hope alive. So Axiom getting in some offense is part of, I think, the Jay story of giving people hope that Jay can win. So, BJF in the chat says Gunther took Axiom lightly. Axiom was in his home country, so he had extra adrenaline, and factions are heavily pushed on NXT. So overall, the amount of offense he got in makes sense. Sadler version 3 says I was fine with Axiom's offense. He's an exciting NXT prospect. I agree with Sean on the Alpha Academy point, though. I think AA getting so much in this feud has dragged down the mid card. Sean.
It's not that I'm saying I like Axiom. I'm not saying anything about Axiom.
No, you hate Axiom. You cannot change now.
I hate him. He's an awful human being, an awful person. No, I have nothing against Axiom. I just think Gunther has... it was just too much for me personally. I just don't think Axiom should be getting that deep of offense. No matter how lightly he takes him.
But he hasn't been defined down. It's not like Axiom gets jobbed all the time. I mean, he's a new guy for most people.
Well, you said, Wade, you've said they could lose 50 times and nothing's wrong with them. They could be rehabilitated. He can get squashed one time by Gunther and he'll be okay. They've not seen him. We've not seen the guy.
He hasn't been defined down. He hasn't been defined up either. We had no reason to think he could do that. But don't forget the hometown bump. Like he had an incredibly
was in his
raucous
hometown.
crowd
He was.
cheering him on, right?
He was. I mean, a spot here or there I can understand. I just don't think that much. I just don't think he needed to get that much. And
I think it's a legitimate point of view to have. I disagree in the sense that I think it's serving a purpose to give fans a sense that Jay has hope. Axiom hasn't just been a jobber. He's not a scrub. He was using dexterity and athleticism and taking advantage of Gunther underrating him. And as Goodfellow 1422 points out, Axiom also on a dominating NXT championship, tag team championship run. I loved the match.
Yeah.
And
again, my other thing too is like the match itself was fine. I'm not saying anything about the match itself. The work in the match was
No, you
fine.
hated the match, Sean. You hated the match. We can tell.
Well, that's what I'm saying. People are like, I love the match. It's not that I didn't love the work in the match. I just think but all in all, I'm just worried about Gunther after this. That's what I'm worried about, because if Jay beats Gunther, which again, I'm still not a fan of it personally, I wouldn't go that route.
Yeah.
I don't want Gunther. He is one of the superstars, or not stars, that you should be moving on with. And I think they still can, obviously, like they think a lot of him. I think there's really something you could be like WWE champion at some point. And I just...
Did JC Scooby 1976 says, I agree with Sean. Mark Pescetti said the match was simply a device for Gunther to show weakness. It's lame. So you've got people on your side, Sean.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. But it was in the crowd, like you guys were saying. The first few international crowds had definitely had the, I'm all in it for myself, and like you said, these guys were not. Like they were just into whatever they were having, and that was great. I want to talk about Randy Orton because I'm definitely excited about this Orton KO. Whether they put Sammy in, I don't know. They haven't said if they are. We don't know if they are. Orton I'm with a lot of people back, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I was just like, okay, get Randy Orton off my screen. I'm tired of this junk, this 10-minute random match that feels like it went 50, and I'm just over it. Now he's enthused. He loves what he's doing. He's into what he's doing. He's compelled by what he's doing. I thought Carmelo, they're actually doing a really nice job with Carmelo right now. Yeah, he's losing, but he's doing a lot of fun stuff. He's getting some offense in. They're making him look credible in losing. It's just been a lot of fun, and I wanted to hear what you guys just thought of the match in general, but like where Orton's going, the feud with KO, maybe even who wins that, or does Sammy get involved? What do you guys think of all that?
I also stand by. I think Carmelo Hayes' run isn't what the number one Carmelo Hayes, he should be a main eventer like person would think, but he's out there against Orton, refusing a handshake, getting his ass kicked as a result, getting TV time. He's establishing his personality. He lasted 10 minutes with Randy Orton. This is not WWE can flip Carmelo into something else eventually when he outgrows his immaturity and has had these moments with big names like Orton. And as much as people delight in seeing Orton beat him up, he gets a little like not maturity credibility, but tough guy credibility for disrespecting Orton to Orton's face like that. So I do think I keep defending Carmelo, and I know Carmelo, not all wrestlers understand. Well, I want to win. It's like, what's going on? Have they lost faith in me? And wrestlers express that behind the scenes, and I think Carmelo has. But I don't. If I'm his friend, I tell him you're good, you're fine. You weren't big enough and good enough to be the actual first round draft pick getting a mega push. You're not Braun Breaker. You're getting TV time. The foundation is being laid. You're having moments with these wrestlers. And the way he's being portrayed does not look like he's going to be cut for in 6 months. The way he's being used looks like they're telling a long-term story with him that won't lead to him being main eventing WrestleMania. I don't think that was ever in the cards, but he's developing a persona and a character with pieces that they can build on. Again, if they believe in him enough and they think his work in the ring, his promos and backstage approach is right, I think they have something to work with here. So I'll throw that out there. I love Joe Tessitore saying, we were seeing a more compassionate version of Orton, but Carmelo Hayes is bringing out the worst in him with this disrespect and then setting up a punt. It's almost like Tessitore is going, Orton wants to be more compassionate, wants to be happier, but these young punks are just like disrespecting him, and Kevin Owens is getting under his skin. So I like that. Chris, your thoughts?
I find it very difficult to watch Randy Orton these days because he is plodding. way back in the day when I first started covering wrestling and Orton was in his prime, we used to have, I used to keep track of whose entrance was longer between Orton's and The Undertaker's. And it was a close run thing in a lot of pay-per-views. But one thing I will say in this match, I think Carmelo showed a textbook definition of what creating movement in the ring looks like. He just kept that match moving and made Randy look a lot better than I think he was. And I can put a lot of that onto ring rust, but they couldn't have chosen a better opponent for Randy here because Carmelo was bouncing all over the place. He made Randy look good. He got his own offense in, and he really made the match into something that was watchable. I am not looking forward to the Orton and KO match because it's going to be a walk and brawl. I don't think it's going to be. I mean, Randy Orton is that 3-star specialist, right? Like you said, like to say, Wade, you need a 4-star match, he'll give you 3. You need a 1-star match, he'll give you 3.
Yeah.
He's just not going
Leroy
to.
Horde.
He's not going to do anything special, and you know, I think Kevin is capable of it, but Kevin's not a miracle worker.
Oh yeah. I think it's going to be better than you think, Chris. I really do. I think it's going to be better than you think. Orton is invested right now. There's something
Chris
there.
watches a lot of New Japan, and so his standard for what counts as a good match is not a legacy star with a backstory and all this history.
I grade on a curve. I do take into account the promotion I'm watching, and what is a 3-star match in New Japan is not going to be the same in WWE. But I think the thing is with Orton, he's in the 5 moves of doom phase of his career. And he's been there for a long time, but he doesn't seem to have the ability to go beyond that, even for the big moments. Cena always busted out new stuff at WrestleMania. So did a lot of the other guys whose movesets were typically limited. I hate the fact that I just used the word movesets in public.
It's not that bad. It gets a bad rap.
I think Orton is what he is now, and he's not going to change, and he doesn't need to. Owens is great, yes, but I would much rather have seen Owens and Zayn wait for WrestleMania than to transition over to Orton.
Let me throw in a few chat comments, Sean, and I'll throw back to you. Scott TPA says, Carmelo's having a great year on TV so far. Kyle Fassel says, kind of was down on Orton's first match being with Carmelo. He doesn't click with me. Brock Bedingfield says, brash young dude getting knocked down a peg or two, but has the balls to stand up to Orton. Jason D from Australia goes, Carmelo is in a great spot. Goodfella1422 said, Melo's so fun in the ring and TV and live crowd is definitely used to his name when he's used to his name when he's ready to get pushed. Sadler version 3 says, I don't think you're, that's a separate thing. I'll save that. Jeremy Diaz says, Melo's been on TV as much as anyone, which is the most important thing. I don't know if it's the most important thing. I don't think that matters without the context of him having a character that I think explains why he's losing a lot, but can also lead to him maturing into somebody who wins. But he showed bravery against some pretty imposing figures along the way. Goodfella1422, Chris, KO will make it great. JC Scooby 1976 says KO needs to beat Randy at Mania to push his heelness to a max. But Sadler version 3 says, I agree, Chris. I don't think it'll be great. The only thing that'll be exciting is the innovative RKO Orton hits.
Sadler.
Benningfield says the crowd being behind RKO will help Randy's cause. Jeremy Diaz says the best part of the match will be KO coming out dressed as Cowboy Bob Orton.
Oh, my friend Jeremy. Oh, my goodness. Oh,
great.
I want to say, I had something. Never mind. I lost that. The thought I had, I lost it. Dang, gummit. Getting old sucks. I hate getting old.
I forgot stuff midstream when I was 12 and 22 and 32. I mean, it just happens.
No, so going to the main event, which was, a fun match. I definitely enjoyed it quite a bit. My thing is, I guess I really thought they would move Street Profits. I thought they were in the movement to go to heels, and now it seems like they're not again. Because
they're heels.
Well, when he was slapping hands, I just always think if you're slapping hands, you're a face. So when Angelo was slapping hands coming in, I was like, well, maybe they still are just over like a edgier baby face, or that's what they're going for. Maybe I don't know. That's what I just when I saw that.
Yeah,
I should.
that's
what they were doing.
I should be less sure, but I don't know. They come across as heels to me and almost
They
felt
do.
sort of like trolling fans by slapping their hands on the way.
They
Chris, what do
were
you think?
all in black.
I know.
Yeah.
They look like
But-
heels to me, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
heel.
I'm the demeanor could just be they're going to be this edgier team, and we're going to mostly match them against heels, and they're not going to pander to fans. But I don't know. I think it's a work in progress, and it's sort of like the way Hurt Business were portrayed. It's like if fans are cheering them, and do we change? Are we changing modes? Even with Gunther, there's a little bit of that was going on. I don't until we just see them for a stretch against babyface opponents being heelish. I understand not quite knowing, and it could be Levesque trying to be overly cute and I want to put my mark in the business, so I'm going to have a bunch of characters that people are ambivalent towards and have mixed feelings towards and never really get behind or against because that's sophisticated and it's 2025. And I just roll my eyes at that. It's like this the formula works. You are where you are because of people who understood the face heel format. Don't get too cute.
Oh, I know what I was saying. I know what I thought in my head. Jason, if you're still in the chat, please tell me the Gunther thing. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. If he says I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. I'm obviously wrong if Jason says I'm wrong. No offense, Wade. I mean, if Jason says I'm wrong, I'm absolutely wrong. So, so going back to that, the match was fine. DIY has something there. So I was kind of like, in a way, I was torn. I was sad that they lost the belts because I think they've done pretty well since they got the belts. And I just think they're doing hot shot, hot potato with the belt, which I don't really enjoy. Oh, yeah. See, look at that.
He just says,
win, Chris.
Jason just said that to
win.
make you happy. He just said that to make you happy.
Well, thank you, Jason, either way.
Jason said I agree with you. Jason said I agree with you, Sean. We don't know what he agrees with you on, and we don't know if he's being sincere. He just might want to see you smile. And your smile made it worth it.
Yes. So what do you think about the hot potato of the titles here lately? Yeah. And do you think they're just going to a three-way with the Street Profits, DIY, and the Guns? Because that's what I'm assuming they're doing. But Pretty Deadly was still there, and I'm like, well, it's got to be a four-way because Chris wants a four-way.
Yeah.
No,
Stop it.
It took me a second to realize that you meant the Motor City Machine Guns and not Austin and Colton.
Yes.
I was like, what?
Motor
Did they
City
sign?
Machine Guns. Motor City Machine Guns.
The tag scene in WWE has never been a priority, right? Not in recent years, anyway. The triple threat, didn't they recently do a triple threat with the Machine Guns and DIY and somebody else?
Oh,
I feel like they
Garza,
did
maybe.
The Pretty Deadly, probably.
Oh, Pretty Deadly, yeah.
I like the Street Profits a lot. I think DIY are great. Pretty Deadly are hilarious, and they are the number one contenders, so they're going to get a shot. But when was the last time the tag titles were defended on WrestleMania? Like they did that ladder match a little while ago. I'm just throwing stuff out there at this point. But
the tag teams are kind of getting booked like women used to get booked. Like just throw them all in one segment. We get one segment per show. Throw them all out there at once. I mean, Levesque grew up in a territory system where tag teams got pushed. I just think there's only so much time on these shows, even in a 3-hour SmackDown, with the amount of time women are getting and the depth chart that they have right now in WrestleMania season. But I don't know. I'm okay with what he's doing. I hope this is a phase and we get out of it and we have two different tag team feuds going on with a couple other teams just sort of on the back burner ready to insert themselves when those two feuds are over, instead of just the whole tag division crossing each other's paths and arguing and fighting constantly. But I mean, I'm fine with this as a chapter because you have just new blood, the Profits with a new look. You have DIY fresh off a turn. You have Motor City Machine Guns coming in and they're fresh. Pretty Deadly, kind of morphing to more sympathetic figures, even if they're the same. No, I mean, it's chaos. What are we gonna do? They're all. I mean, it's fine, but I want to move on after WrestleMania or sooner.
Yeah. Just tell compelling stories with them because Chris, I wanted to hear your thought because we talked about this when MCMG won the titles initially. I was against it. I was like, not to the sense of they didn't make them feel important, but it was like you gave them the titles just so fast, and then they lose, and then they're just kind of feel lost in the shuffle. Where Wade made a good point. He's like, well, if they win the titles right away, they feel important, and you make them feel like they're a big deal. But I just feel like they're kind of in a weird spot, and I just wish they would have told a story to them eventually winning the titles and keeping them on them for a little bit. But I I want them to do something with the tag teams in both companies. Both companies are doing a terrible job with the tag team all around. I mean, it's just bad. So I hope they do something with that. But Chris, what did you think about that with the MCMG? Did you think they should have won them right away, or did you think they should have told a story going into that? Because I'm just curious what you thought. Because I was just, we talked about it obviously at the time, but
Well, I mean, obviously, if we agree, then that means you're right. So, I thought the way they brought in the Machine Guns, they gave them a lot of fanfare. They pushed them as your favorite tag team's favorite tag team. They gave them all those vignettes, which you don't normally see for a tag team in WWE. They needed to do something big to justify the attention they had paid to bringing these guys in. I think letting them win the titles was fine. Like, they are an excellent tag team who can help others develop. I do believe they have a coaching role backstage, even if it's not like an official one. It's certainly not full time. They're bringing on a lot of the guys, and I think you're going to see them. I'm pretty sure Fraxium are coming up after WrestleMania. I would not be surprised if they have a match with the Machine Guns. I think everybody is waiting for that match. I'm fine with it, honestly. I thought winning the titles made sense given where they were in the story. And I can see why some people are saying they should have kept him longer.
And I'm fine. I'm fine with hot potato every once in a while with tag titles. I mean, I think rapid fire title changes makes you think, oh, they just won the belts, they won't lose them. And now you're like, well, they just won the belts, they might lose them, because that's the way I'm used to watching wrestling, and it should be that way. There should be long title reigns, medium title reigns, and short title reigns, and sometimes there's parity. We've seen that in UFC. Sometimes you have a long-term champion in one division, and then there's another division where the belts is changing hands almost every fight. There's almost never a successful defense by the champ. That's sport. Sometimes there's a legacy, a dynasty team in a sport that wins, or makes it to the finals constantly. New England Patriots, for example, the Islanders in the 80s, the Bulls in the 90s. I mean, and sometimes it's a different team every year, and I don't mind that as part of my booking. So, I mean, that's a generic comment, but like in terms of the U.S. title and the tag titles changing hands, I don't want this to be, and this is why I say we're early in Levesque's booking term.
Yeah.
If he keeps doing this, he's cashing in and burning out the notion that title changes are special and infrequent and mean something. And we're going back to the 2000s when there was a lot of irresponsibility and cashing in on a lot of disciplined booking in the previous decades. And it worked until it didn't. And then it takes a long time to rebuild it. And so hopefully that's not what we're seeing here. It's just shake it up. And so I'm okay with it now, but I will not be okay with it if it keeps happening. And we're talking about, 4 more tag team title changes by, August.
Yeah. A few more quick things. The first was I am number one. It's like I think Jason brought up. Cena is it's his time to speak, and I'm looking forward to Monday when Cena and Cody get together.
Oh, yeah.
I am looking forward to that. That should be some compelling stuff. Mm-hmm. Going back to, I know it's not doesn't mean a huge thing on the show. There's so much else going on, but. Was it weird that Alba Fire is in her secret Hervis? I was like, what the heck? I did not know. I know she attacked, was involved in the match, but I thought like something different going on with Alba Fire. I didn't think that was what they were doing. I thought that was a little, I mean, it was funny, but it was just weird. I wasn't expecting. What you guys think about that?
It came across like Kip Sabian joining Christian's coalition and kind of being the guy who's going to replace Nick Wayne. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised by it, but it did feel like, whoa, oh, here we are. Okay. Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, I know Tej really liked it. I read over his feud tracker earlier today, and he thought it was a great idea to sort of show an extra dimension to Alba Fire. You had to do something with her after Isla Dawn got released. She was kind of going to be floundering without any sort of a role there to play. And Chelsea's one of the hottest things going right now. Like, people are loving this gimmick. Putting her with Piper Niven, who they've got some great chemistry from their independent days up in Scotland. It's an interesting decision, and I can see why people don't like it because they'd just rather see Alba Fire wrestle singles matches on her own. But I think this gives her a chance to develop as a character, to show another side of what she's capable of, and she'll probably come out of it on top and maybe even end up feuding with Chelsea over the title at some point.
Sean, you said it. Another quick thing. I'm going to wrap up soon here. We got Dr. Doom on hold too.
Yeah, so just going back to the Bianca stuff, I mean, obviously I didn't like the Raw segment as a whole, but with Bianca, I like what they're doing with. I like that she's being more serious. I do enjoy it. I'm curious, where do you think they're going with it? Because I ultimately I want her to go heel, and I would just wish they would do the Bianca Rhea match at Mania and move on from there. But I don't think they are. So, what have you guys thought of her? The serious character we're seeing more from her, and that's all I had, guys. Chris, I appreciate it. Wade, you're the best. Go VIP, everyone. Always fun.
Thanks, Sean. Awesome.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure what to make of it, honestly. Like, I guess we'll see how it plays out. Like, I just it's still too early for the Alba Fire thing for me. Yeah, it is what it is. The loss of Isla Dawn is still something that I guess they weren't ready to do, and they just sort of pivoted.
Sadler Vision 3 says, I expected it. What else was Alba going to do? Brock Benningfield said, Sean, I agree. It was a little weird to see Fire in that role. We will see. Standard Deviation says, I'm 30 minutes behind, but I wanted to push back against the overused Shades of Grey argument. Netflix series are not subject to live weekly crowd reactions that influence the next episode. There we go. I'll read a couple of the comments when we get to Dr. Doom, because as we're talking, there's some comments on the tag division I didn't get to. Kyle Fassel said, I think it being the main event tonight was an attempt to showcase the tag division a bit. Jason D said, I want Gunther to own what happened with Axiom and say, everyone needs to understand that no matter who I'm in the ring with, I'm always in control. Something like that. Jeremy Diaz said, on the bright side, we have legitimate tag teams again instead of two random singles lumped together for the sake of making a team. Kyle said, I think that Motor City Machine Guns should still be the champs. I love them. Kyle Fassel also says the tag division could use a compelling story. It just kind of matches with very basic stories that aren't compelling. So anyway, just wanted to get a few of those in there. Let's bring Dr. Doom into the conversation. This would be pretty close to the end of the show, though. I want to work in reaction to Heyman's promo, too. Dr. Doom, welcome. What's in your mind about SmackDown tonight? We cannot hear you. So I think Dr. Doom's adjusting something. A 3-decade VIP member, by the way. Thank you for that. Now I might be hearing some background. No, we still can't hear you. Okay, as you figure that out, yeah, he's waving by. All right, call back in if you figure that out. Chris, Paul Heyman tonight got booed when he said Roman Reigns won't be here till next week, and he goes, "Well, you can buy a flight on cheapo airlines to go to Italy." It was a little weird. What was going on there? And trying to play kind of both sides with Punk and Roman, but ripping on Seth. Give me your take on things, Chris.
I think he was one of a series of people who quite rightly annoyed the live crowd by saying, you're going to see this great thing next week. Mm-hmm. Cody said he was going to do something next week, and then you had Roman and being there next week, and something else that they announced would be happening next week in an entirely different country. It's not like, this week they're in Minneapolis, next week they're in Milwaukee, and I guess if you really wanted to, you could drive it. You can drive from Barcelona to Bologna, but why would you? It just, I didn't hear anything in Heyman's promo. It was just, Roman Reigns is great, CM Punk's kind of cool, we all hate Seth Rollins, buy the video game, bye-bye. There was nothing to it. And Heyman's capable of more than that. I think they just wanted to put him out there to get him on TV, same as they did with Cody as well. I didn't think Cody's promo really advanced anything. I did like the line about only wanting to talk about Cena and to Cena, but they just wanted to put the Heyman out there to get the reaction from the crowd.
And to plug the video game.
Yeah, and the video game as well, because the game came out today. It's important to plug your merchandise. I get it. I don't want it to go much beyond today, but that's fine. It's weird to have Heyman doing it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was weird for Heyman to be like, you're all going to play the game, but wait till SmackDown's over because my ratings are important. And I mean, it was kind of a funny line, but it didn't feel like a wise man promo to me. Yeah, I mean, it was just sort of there. I mean, and it's like, yeah, it's Roman Reigns Day, not CM Punk Day, but it'll never be Seth Rollins Day, and I hate that song. Yeah, I mean, I mean, the reason we didn't get to it till now is it wasn't heavily advertised. It didn't have a big point. It didn't forward anything. It just promoted the video game, and Heyman seemed maybe not that he was evasive because he wasn't asked any questions, but he didn't really get into what was going on with Punk and Roman's reaction to it, just kind of avoiding it. So, anything else, Chris, from the show that you want to bring up?
Checking my notes. I have a couple of quick ones. It struck me today how much Joe Tessitore can kind of sound and look like Michael Cole sometimes. BFAB, when BFAB came out, they said, can BFAB beat the 14-time world champion? No, she can't. I do think in that match, the BFAB and Charlotte match, we did get to see Charlotte almost try to carry a match, which she has been notoriously bad at doing. I won't say she was great at it, but she did seem to be a little bit more comfortable guiding someone through a match, which is a very important skill, especially as a heel, because traditionally the heel is going to be the one directing the match. It wasn't a good match, but if you're grading on the BFAB curve, it was a good match.
The boot that Charlotte pre-bumped on, I don't know who to blame. I don't like getting it. I mean, unless it's real obvious, because sometimes we can be wrong on that. But Wade Barrett covering for it, going, she didn't, BFAB didn't get all of it, but Charlotte saw it coming. Like the veteran she is, she pulled back, but she still was stunned, falling backwards. It was, I'm glad they acknowledge it, and then they go to the reverse angle where you can't see anything. But.
And then you have Wade Barrett still trying to say that Charlotte pulled away from it, even though you can't see that from the different angle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think what Wade is doing is he's paying attention. He's like, oh, God, I got to cover for this. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you're better off ignoring it and not drawing attention to it, but that was just so obvious. Yeah. And then Charlotte tried to, kip up and stumbled and then kind of redid. It's like watching the Olympics and like, oh, no, they're going to get marked down a point. Charlotte, it's, she's got an aura, but she's not great, and on the mic or in the ring. And that's the argument for Tiffany just beating her. But there's star power there, and I think they want to pay that off in different ways. But I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of talent in the pipeline. I don't know how much Charlotte's getting paid. I'm not rooting for her to be like cut, but I'm just saying flat out, I don't think WWE would be in a particularly worse spot if she were cut. I mean, she's not essential to eating up salary cap space. CJ LaChapelle says Charlotte's overrated. But Sean Plitch just says she has charisma, but nothing else. Goodfellas says she's got a look. She can talk on the mic. So yeah, and by the way, Sean, this works in what Sean says with a super chat. Chris, talk WWE more often, please. Appreciate you. All right, go ahead.
I shall do that. I think Charlotte is properly rated by fans and overrated by WWE. I think for the most part, fans realize that she's fine, but she's not anything more than her look at this point. And I think WWE thinks that she has the last name and she needs to be pushed to the moon.
I mean, Ric Flair was a really big deal 20 years ago. He was a big deal 15 years ago. He was a legend 10 years ago. And we're kind of at a different place now. Like, being the daughter of Ric Flair, there's a lot of people who grew up with Ric Flair being a lot of things, but not the greatest wrestler of all time. Not a cool guy, riding jets, wearing three-piece suits. I mean, Flair has been a public embarrassment in a lot of ways for quite a while. And being his daughter, I don't think has the cachet that it once did.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Doom is back. Let's see if his mic is working. Dr. Doom, welcome back.
Can you guys hear me now?
Oh yeah, we got you.
I can't hear you. No, I can. Yeah. Chris ruined it.
You play it cool. You get that dry sense of humor, man. It messed me up. I had to switch the whole laptops, but
yeah.
So thank you for taking my call. So
we won't put up with it with anyone but you. You've been VIP member for so long.
I appreciate that. Like I really do.
With everyone else, one strike and you're out if your mic doesn't work.
Yeah,
if you're muted,
as a teacher, sometimes they don't appreciate you try to look over someone they don't realize. So I appreciate it, Mr. Keller.
And as a frequent listener, people know I do not tolerate a mute button being on.
And it says subscriber for decades.
I know.
More than 1 decade.
I know, that's great.
I put it in there on purpose. But the one thing in general, the first time that I called in, like I called it a couple times in the past, when Jey Uso won the Royal Rumble, and I was talking about how it was bringing down Gunther, right? Because like my friend, that's his favorite, and like his little kid, it's his favorite thing. But then the little kids at WrestleMania, when I go home, my family lives in Philadelphia, but the kids love, they eat and all that stuff. Yeah. But the kids, you know what I mean? And I get that. But I'm talking about like long term. Like I thought Gunther was on like a trajectory that's kind of being brought down, and it's also part of the scheduling and the long period of time in between the Rumble and WrestleMania. That's part of it also. But I don't even mind the match. Like I liked the match and him versus Axiom tonight. Like I thought that was good. But like I still feel like that might be like one of the hot. I think they're gonna run out of steam in terms of building that match and like in general. But I don't want to. Yeah, let me stick to 1 point at a time. So let me stay with
it. Chris, any thoughts?
No, I think I'm pretty much on the same page as you for that one. Yeah, it's.
Oh, you agree, gentleman? Chris Adams. Yeah. No, the super kick was my move in middle school.
He was the innovator of that super kick for sure.
He was actually my first favorite wrestler in the history of. I wouldn't be on this thing right now if it wasn't for the gentleman Chris Adams. That's 100% true. He's my first favorite wrestler in the history of wrestling, which is
when he turned on the Von Erichs, that was a big deal. I remember WCCW.
But
and Dr. Doom, my story about Chris Adams, where after a UWF show, I asked him, and this is in '86, and I was like, I think '86, right? Or was it early '87? And I said, are you guys coming back to Minnesota? And he's like, there's been a murder. A what? A murder? He's like, no, a merger. The accent I couldn't understand. And he gave me the scoop that I didn't know at the time that Jim Crockett Promotions had bought Bill Watts' UWF. Yep. And that gave me a taste of, wait, if I talk to wrestlers, I can find stuff out first. I could report that. It gave me a little spark of like, and I was just, I was a 15-year-old kid at that point. But yeah, Chris Adams in World Class Championship Wrestling was a great character. Great persona. He and Gino Hernandez as a dynamic duo, a great team. The Kevin Von Erich feud with Chris Adams was great. Sunshine and Precious. He wasn't the greatest person off camera. There was a lot of stuff going on.
It's kind of besides the point. It's not besides the point, but we just have to view it that way as fans. The art versus the artist. Yeah. Sort of thing.
I know he was a special kind of bad, so I almost feel like I got as I'm complimenting, I don't want people go, oh, wait, why are you saying such good things about such a bad person? And obviously, no one's as bad as few people are as bad as their worst day or worst phase of their life. But we can love the work of Chris Adams through the lens of being a fan and not knowing all that stuff. And he was really good. Yeah.
And then so let me switch 360 real quick, or 180, not 360. The Flair
270 in honor of you looking off camera at the beginning of this call.
I always look off camera because I don't like looking at myself when I'm talking. It's kind of weird. I'm not used to it. I'm not a professional like you, right? So I like looking at myself when I'm talking. But so the Tiffany versus Charlotte, to me they're both heels. I understand why people would cheer them for certain reasons. I'm not going to disclose, but like there's nothing really likable about any of these people there. So what are you actually doing with this match besides the same thing as Charlotte Flair wrestling B-Fabs or whatever? Okay, let's just put these people, which is a good thing. Let this veteran get in the ring with this person and help season them. And Charlotte Flair's like, okay, I'll do that for them. But like, who am I? I don't have any children, okay? But if I have like a 5-year-old daughter or something, is she supposed to root for? Charlotte Flair, the snob, or Tiffany, whatever her name is, Tiffany, whatever.
Tiffany Stratton. Yeah.
Tiffany, what is it?
Tiffany Stratton.
Tiffany Stratton, my bad. She's from Minnesota.
From Prior Lake, Minnesota.
I missed the Prior Lake, Minnesota. Yeah, Tiffany Stratton. She's the typical like Instagram model type girl, which is fine. That's admirable to a lot of people. That's a heel character.
I know.
That's fine.
Blame the fans. The fans are cheering her.
Because of other reasons, though. That's what I'm saying. So it's not.
Well, blame them. Whatever the reasons, they were cheering her, and WWE's like, well, they're popping for her. So
yeah, we know
I think they should have stuck with her as a heel. I think they should have stuck it out. But
so I guess what I'm saying is, in general, my overall thing is that I feel like the company, they aren't building up they're just resting on their laurels. I can't say that word properly, but it's like because we're Netflix and billion-dollar deals and all this, we don't need to actually build up these big-time matches so that WrestleMania sells out and we get all these pay-per-view buys. Back in my day, that's what it was. That was just like, all right, let's just make sure it's gonna sell out pretty much anyway. You could throw out a mid card. It's gonna. So that's what I feel, and that's my overall point more than the micro of the individual matches. Mm-hmm. The main thing that gets to me is the overall, the lack of, I could say lack of urgency, not trying to maximize each individual moment, just being comfortable with we're profitable. We had the largest gate. The largest gate is due to inflation. Okay, I have a PhD in finance. Okay, that's the way it works. This is not I'm not stupid. Right? Prices go up, so obviously your gate's gonna go up. Come on, don't lie to me. I'm aware. So that type of stuff, and I feel like you can rely on that. And I heard you, Wade, say sometime this week about the Fox deal. I actually put this in my dissertation when I wrote my PhD. How Fox misevaluated the value and how many buys that they're going to get for the network, and overvaluated the stock. That was in my dissertation. So all that kind of stuff. But I feel like right now there's still such a big gap, and they're just taking advantage of their position instead of maximizing the gifts and the talent that they have as a roster. Number 4 back. My bad. I was talking too low.
I think I think when people say wrestling is inevitably cyclical, they are wrong. But human nature leads to complacency and arrogance, and during success periods, then mistakes are made, and they ride the wave of success while those mistakes are being made, and that insulates them from realizing mistakes are being made. And then by the time, and this is so WCW Nitro and Thunder, and then by the time it's too late, and by the time they realize it, it's too late. AW went through that a little bit. They made mistakes. People stuck it out for a while. And then eventually they, significant drop in viewership and attendance. So, I don't know, Chris, what do you think?
Did they get away with it, though? Wait, did they get away with it, though?
No.
Have they gotten away with it?
Well, WWE so far it has, but I don't. We're in the midst of it. We just can't. It's like, what NBA player is going to be seen as the best of this era who is in the first 5 years of his career? Ask me in 7 years when that player has played for a dozen years, or maybe in 15 after he's been retired for 3. We don't know yet, but there are signs of both. I think they're doing a ton right, and I think there are some things that are little warning signs. Is Paul Levesque truly appreciating what got him to this place, and is he pushing it in certain ways? Are they, building the next generation well? There's some good. Honestly, more good than bad. Chris, what do you think?
I think it's an interesting conversation, because when you look at the way WWE does things, it's very paint by numbers, and they can almost plug and play people as they take some out and put some in, injuries and what have you. Mm-hmm. The point about the gate is an excellent one. I also think it's a wild take to brag about, hey, we got you marks to pay us more money than ever before. That's not something that encourages me to go to a WWE show. It just doesn't make sense. But so far they've got away with it. I think why people think wrestling is cyclical is because the more you succeed, the more attention you draw, and the more you have to continue finding things to hold that attention.
Yeah.
And a lot of success in wrestling has been finding that lucky angle, that lucky character, and giving it to the right person that resonates. And you can only get that lucky so often. You know, there's, for every Stone Cold, there's a Ted DiBiase Jr.
Mm-hmm.
or a Damian Sandow. You know, like people who got amazing reactions, but it didn't last. Eventually, WWE, the well is going to run dry on these amazing storylines. Wrestlers are going to start to get malcontented. You're going to have another company is going to start doing impressive things, and some of that viewership will shift. But WWE is too huge for that to matter. I think they're going to be fine. When it's what happens behind them that's going to determine how this industry survives.
But gentlemen, Mr. Adams, I don't know. I don't agree with they're too big. They're gonna be fine. That's besides the point to me. The point is, of course, they aren't gonna go out of business. The point is, like, are you maximizing the interest in utilizing your resources?
They cannot charge more money for tickets or fill buildings any more full than completely sold out. They can't run more nights of WrestleMania.
I feel like you're mocking me at this juncture.
No. But I'm building to this.
Yeah,
I got that. You. So the evidence is not in. But I go back to my last answer, and this is more big picture than I like to do on post show. So I want to. It's late, so I want to move on. If there's something specific to the show that you think backs this up.
Yeah.
But in general, we don't know yet. And there is some, when you have a 25-point lead in an NBA game, you can screw around a little bit. And then when it gets down to 9, you get serious again. So, and I don't even think that's happening. I think Levesque's, this was a ship run by Vince McMahon for a very, 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 very long time. And now Levesque is fixing some things. There was an absence of irritants when he first came in, but there's some new irritants he's introducing that we're working our way through. So we're too in the middle of it to make a verdict, Dr. Doom.
No, I absolutely. I do not disagree with it. I'm just speaking. What's the word?
But I do want to wrap up in a minute. So is there anything else you want
to
No,
I got you. Yeah. I'm out. Yeah. Like the last thing I just want to say is that, like, because I wrote this down. With Joe Tessitore, like, because it's funny because there was this boxing game called Fight Night that, like, lots of us played, but he was the announcer. So, like, I knew Joe, and, like, I liked him the whole time, and I like how you didn't like him at first. It came around. It's to me, it's refreshing to hear someone evaluate someone, like, honestly, and be like, okay, now I can hear what he's doing. And so I appreciate it. I wanted to bring that up because, like,
In my defense, I think I still don't like what he did at the beginning, and I liked that he got better within weeks. Like, there were a lot of mannerisms and like emphasis on words that was just too stylish and felt put on, and it's like, talk to us like a human. Don't do this stuff. And then like within 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, he had like one of the best calls of a main event on TV that I've heard in WWE TV in a long time. Like, it was just like. Right, and that's probably, but he like rose to the occasion in a big match. And I was texting people in WWE just going, okay, he's good. And they're like, yeah, I wasn't sure either, but now I know he's going to be good. Within 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it was, he just, all of a sudden but it was new to him. It's a new world. And so anyway, yeah.
No, I'm saying I appreciated your evolution of evaluation of Joe Tessitore.
Yeah, yep.
Like, it's probably something you don't hear from anybody else. So I appreciate it. You guys have a great night. Thank you very much for having me on. And gentleman, Chris Adams, Super Kick, Mr. Keller. Appreciate y'all. Have a great night, and God bless.
Thanks, Dr. Doom. Now, I don't know, and I don't want to call him. Does Dr. Doom know that Chris Adams is a co-host on this show, and you are Chris Lansdell, and they're different people?
I mean, have you seen us both in the same room at the same time?
Well, can we bring you back, Dr. Doom? Raise your hand if we can. Okay, so I don't. Did I miss it? Do you think this is Chris Adams, or is it the accent?
So no. So I never watch unless I'm calling in. Yeah. So I know there's the Chris Adams. The voice sounds similar. I assumed it was this. I see it says Chris Lansdell. And I feel like an idiot right now. So thank you for that. But,
I wasn't. I was like, well, I just said I don't want to say it to his face. So but I'm like, well, that's even worse. And he's just sitting there. Let me ask him.
Yeah,
So,
no,
all right.
no, I
Thanks.
didn't. I
But-
assumed because of Chris, and because of the hair, maybe because of like the I'm like, yeah, it looks like a gentleman, Chris Adams.
You're okay. You don't lose sleep over this. It's fine.
No,
I
it's
thought,
I won't.
Dr. Doom, I thought what you were doing is because of the accent, and I thought
That's
that
what it
that
was.
works.
That's what I'm saying. Because
Exactly.
I only listen to you. Like I hear you. Like I hear you
Yep.
all the time. It's all
Yep.
I listen to your podcast when I'm
Yep.
going to sleep all the time.
Yep.
So I hear the
Yep.
voices and like Mr. Landell's voice and
Of
Mr.
course.
Adams' voice. They might not sound the same, but to me, they did enough with the same.
You're good. You're good.
I
You're good.
disagree.
We got you.
My bad. I apologize.
No, you don't have to apologize.
no,
And you probably can't deliver a super kick either. So
Not anymore.
yeah, neither can I. So we're in the same boat.
I was in karate for a long time, and I'm pretty flexible still. I probably could hit a decent super, better than some wrestlers still. But
Better than Britt Baker.
yeah, that's the thing. It's still, yeah.
It's funny because to me, gentlemen, Chris Adams' accent is very much from the center of England, and the accent there is very distinct. Mine is sort of southern London accent. They're not similar to my ear, but I know to a lot of people's ears they're very same.
It's I mean, there's like so-called American accent, but there's so many different whatever in America too. But I just think you definitely don't sound like gentleman Chris Adams, a wrestler, to me. Your accent is very different, but you can imagine somebody doing a bit on it and not caring to differentiate. All right, Chris, thank you. Fun show. We have to have you talk to WWE again.
Yeah, love to.
Awesome. And so thanks everybody. Go VIP if you haven't yet. We would love to have you as a VIP member during this WrestleMania season and beyond. Full VIP membership available at pwtorch.com/govip. pwtorch.com/govip. All kinds of options. You can sign up directly with your Apple account through the iPhone Apple podcast app. You can sign up through Spotify and Patreon. You can sign up using your credit card or debit card or PayPal. And there's different tiers and different benefits. So check out full details, pwtorch.com/govip. Thank you, everybody, and we will talk to you next time.